Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're going to look at how to take those tiny, delicate little plants you usually see sitting on the edge of a fancy restaurant plate and completely transform them into absolute daily nutritional powerhouses for your own kitchen. Because it turns out we're looking at a truly accessible superfood that you can literally grow right on your countertop.
Seriously, think about it for a second. How often have you ordered a fancy sandwich or this beautifully plated dinner, only to just brush aside that little nest of green strings to get to the real food? Well, you might actually want to rethink that habit. As you'll see today, those tiny, seemingly insignificant greens can hold up to 100 times the beneficial enzymes of the mature, raw vegetables you're already eating. Crazy, right?
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Beyond the garnish. 2. Sprouts versus microgreens. 3. Defeating anti-nutrients. 4. Nutritional all-stars. And finally, 5. Supercharging your meals. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, Beyond the Restaurant Garnish, the ultimate local superfood. You know, to really take back the power of our food, we have to look at how these tiny plants actually grow. When a seed first germinates, it enters this incredibly rapid growth phase. And to sustain that sudden burst of life, the little plant requires and produces massive amounts of enzymes. In fact, research shows there are up to 100 times more beneficial enzymes in sprouts than in raw, full-grown vegetables. So when we eat them, all of those rapidly firing enzymes translate into just incredible benefits for our own cellular health and regeneration. Moving right along to Section 2, Sprouts versus Microgreens. What's the difference? Now, what's really interesting here is how these terms get tossed around interchangeably all the time, right? Let's clarify the distinct timelines and the anatomy we're dealing with before we get into the biology inside our bodies. Sprouts are the absolute youngest version of the plant. They germinate in just 2 to 4 days, and when you eat a sprout, you are consuming the entire thing, the tiny stem, the root, and the whole seed itself. Microgreens, on the other hand, take a little longer. They grow in soil or a growing medium for about 1 to 2 weeks. And when they're ready, you harvest them by snipping off just the stem and those very first 2 little leaves that have formed, leaving the root and the seed behind. But listen, whether you choose a 2-day-old sprout or a 2-week-old microgreen, you are looking at a classic David versus Goliath scenario when compared to fully mature plants. When researchers compared the vitamin content of microgreens to the mature leaves of the exact same plants, they found that these younger, tiny leaves pack 4 to 6 times the nutritional punch. Honestly, it's just an incredibly efficient way to get your vitamins without having to eat bowls and bowls of mature greens. Which brings us to Section 3, Defeating Anti-Nutrients, Unlocking the Vault. Now, this is where the biology gets truly fascinating. To harness the power of seeds and grains, we have to understand this brilliant biological workaround. Let's think of a dormant seed as a locked vault. In nature, a seed's ultimate goal is to survive being eaten, pass completely intact through a digestive tract, and then grow into a plant in the soil later. And to do this, seeds contain anti-nutrients like phytic acid. Phytic acid naturally binds to essential minerals inside the seed, things like magnesium, zinc, calcium, and iron, just locking them up tightly. Because of this, our bodies have a really hard time breaking them down and absorbing those vital minerals. It's great for the seed's survival, sure, but not so great for our nutrition. But here is where the magic happens. We can actually pick the lock on that vault. By simply soaking and sprouting seeds for even just 1 single day, you activate a biological key. The sprouting process can reduce the anti-nutrient content of those seeds by 90% or more. So the crucial point here is that by breaking down these enzyme inhibitors, lectins, and anti-nutrients like phytic acid, sprouting completely changes how our bodies react to these foods. If you've ever experienced gas or severe digestive issues from eating unsprouted beans or seeds, well, this is exactly why. Sprouting essentially pre-digests the plant for you, solving those gastrointestinal issues and making the amino acids and minerals completely bioavailable. All right, now that we know how powerful they are, let's look at Section 4, the nutritional all-stars. Which greens to choose? Every single plant brings its own unique payload of hidden health benefits to the table. First up, we have broccoli sprouts, and let me tell you, these are absolute superstars in the wellness world. They contain a highly studied cancer-fighting compound called sulforaphane. And the staggering statistic here is that a microscopic broccoli sprout contains 10 to 100 times more sulforaphane than a full-grown head of adult broccoli. Just let that sink in for a second. And this brilliantly illustrates how the benefits vary wildly depending on what you grow.
Take a look at red cabbage microgreens. They are remarkably rich in anthocyanins, which offer incredible anti-inflammatory properties and actively contribute to your heart health. Then you have kale microgreens. Just like adult kale, these tiny greens act as a nutritional gold mine for bone and immune support. They are absolutely loaded with calcium and vitamins A, C, and K.
We also absolutely cannot overlook sunflower microgreens. These are fantastic because they deliver essential minerals like iron, magnesium, and potassium in a deliciously crisp, tiny package. They also bring a really high dose of vitamins A and C, making them an incredibly well-rounded addition to pretty much any meal.
And this leads us perfectly into our final section, supercharging your daily meals, effortless integration. So how do we effortlessly integrate these into our everyday lifestyles without completely overhauling how we cook? Well, it's remarkably easy to stop treating these as just visual garnishes. The most obvious step is just tossing a huge handful straight into your salads. But you can get way more creative than that. Try blending basil or arugula microgreens into a fresh pesto, or maybe fold finely chopped radish sprouts into mayonnaise or an aioli to give your sandwich spreads this incredible, spicy kick of pure nutrition.
Let's see how this builds into drinks, because if you aren't in the mood to chew your greens, you can honestly just drink them. You can effortlessly sneak mild-tasting sprouts like alfalfa or clover into your morning smoothies. You can muddle mint or basil microgreens into refreshing fresh teas, or, even use them to elevate an evening cocktail. It's a completely effortless way to ensure you're getting your daily dose of superfoods. So, we've seen how these tiny greens completely outshine mature vegetables, how they naturally disable the anti-nutrients that causes so much digestive grief, and just how easily they can blend right into the foods and drinks we already love. The science is absolutely clear here, and the benefits are massive. You now hold the key to unlocking these local superfoods right on your own kitchen counter. So, the only question left is, what are you going to sprout first?